Good evening, everyone. I'm Larry Kudlow. This is the Kudlow Report. We're live here at 7 p.m. Eastern and 4 p.m. Pacific. Forget the Russian reset. It seems the relationship between President Obama and Russian President Vladimir Putin is at a breaking point tonight. The world hadn't really seen anything like this since the beginning of World War II. Yet today, Russia thumbed its nose at the U.S. and the EU, officially annexing Ukraine's Crimea region, but a defiant Putin accused the West of, quote, crossing the line, while saying Moscow has no plans to send troops further into Ukraine. Well, now we await President Obama's response, which must be tough, clear, and properly targeted. Joining us now, we've got an all-star panel here to offer their expert political analysis of this whole story. Lanny Davis, former special counsel to President Clinton and the author of Crisis Tales. Bill Kristol, founder and editor of The Weekly Standard. And Hugh Hewitt, syndicated radio host and author of The Happiest Life. Gentlemen, thank you. You honor me. It's a great panel. Bill Kristol, let me begin with you. I think you heard the discussion we just had, the importance of the financial side, the importance of the military side. Bill, what do you want President Obama to do? When do you want him to do it?
Well, I would have liked him to have done different things 5 years ago when he foolishly pursued this reset. No sanctions were imposed for Putin's very similar invasion of Georgia. Putin took the lesson that he can use a pretext to invade another country, defending the, quote, Russian-speaking people when he lost control in Ukraine a month ago. That's why he did this. This wasn't just like, oh, Crimea's been on his mind for years. He was losing control of Ukraine. This was his retaliatory blow. The main thing we need to do is to make the rest, to work with the rest of Ukraine to bring them closer to the West, including military aid and even military guarantees, I think. The idea that this can be done by sanctioning a few individuals, that's an effective response to Putin's military action, is silly. It would be nice if it were the case. Everyone in America, you've got to say, oh, my God, we can't even conceive of using military force, no boots on the ground, no, we're just interested in economic sanctions. Putin doesn't think that way.
But we think that way, Bill Kristol.
Well, we shouldn't think that. We didn't always think this that way, and we shouldn't think this way. And we have a military treaty with NATO nations right next to Russia. And if we continue thinking the way we're thinking, he will invade a NATO nation. We will do nothing. He will use a pretext to go into part of a NATO nation. We will do nothing, and NATO will crumble. And what's the world going to look like then?
Lanny Davis, let me go to you. You heard what Bill Kristol said. I'm a financial sanctions guy who would give military assistance. Boots on the ground, Lanny, that's a big step for me. What say you?
It's more than a big step. It's more than the American people, right, left, and center, would tolerate, according to all the polls. I think Bill Kristol is a great man and with a great mind, but he got his history wrong. President Bush was president, my old buddy President Bush, by the way, when Georgia was being invaded by the then Russian forces that took over the two outlier provinces, and there were no sanctions imposed under President Bush. I think President Obama has done it just right, and the sanctions worked, I believe, in bringing Iran to the table. They certainly suffered from the sanctions regime that both Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton administered. So I think right now that Barack Obama has got it right politically as well as policy-wise.
But what's he waiting for, Hugh Hewitt? Listen, look, Hugh, I've been trying so hard to support the president during this period because I regard Putin as the enemy and the devil, all right? But I thought the announcement the president made yesterday was so inadequate, and he didn't say anything today. I mean, where are the oligarchs? Where are the sanctions on banking? Where is the military assistance? I'll certainly go with Bill Kristol on military assistance. Where is the discussion about exporting natural gas? Where is the 25 or 35 permits to create liquid natural gas terminals? Where is a comprehensive package that will say we mean business to Putin?
No, it's not there, Larry. In fact, the contempt oozing out of the Kremlin towards Washington, D.C. is palpable, and we haven't felt this kind of contempt since the 70s. Something Bill Kristol just said I've been thinking about since he said it. We have a treaty with Poland. I really wonder if Americans, maybe Lanny will tell me this, if he decided he wanted to go and liberate the Russian enclaves in Poland, does Lanny Davis or do Democrats think we would step up and defend our NATO ally? Because right now, given this president's record of weakness, Iran's not at the table, Lanny. Iran owns the table. Given this record, we are inviting recklessness on the part of authoritarians all over the globe. And Larry, you're right. Everything that you said should have been done 3 weeks ago, and we might not be here today. But nothing has been done, and now I worry about the next crisis, not the one we are seeing coming to its conclusion today.
Lanny, what's your response to what Hugh Hewitt is saying?
Well, I'm very worried. I think you make a valid point, Hugh, that this may not be Munich all over again, but it certainly looks like Hitler going into the Sudetenland on the excuse that the German Czechoslovakians wanted some help from Hitler. And I do think that NATO is the place that we have to rally and take a stand. I just would like to ask you and my friend Bill, is this the United States' unique role? Where is Europe? Where is England, as Larry pointed out? And where is NATO? We would like to have a lot more sound and anger out of the European Union than I'm now hearing. Why is it only Barack Obama's responsibility to do what you just said?
Bill, I want you to answer that. I mean, NATO, as you mentioned, I'm all for the NATO military exercises. I think any financial sanctions have to have London involved, and really anything has to have Germany involved. What do you think, Bill Kristol?
Look, it's not easy to bring the Europeans along, but that's what presidential leadership is about. That's what American leadership is about. And Larry, I just come back to the sanctions he announced yesterday. I was on Sunday thinking, okay, he'll announce serious sanctions, many individuals, also actual sectors of Russian industry and banking, not just a few individuals, most of whom apparently yesterday don't even have assets out of the country. Then he announced the 7 individuals yesterday. What kind of signal did that send? Now, could he make up for it by announcing stronger sanctions today and military aid and military exercises with NATO allies? It's not just Poland, as you mentioned. It's Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, which really do have Russian minorities, which really are right there on the border. Small countries are now in NATO. So I really hope the president ramps up across the board, leaving aside boots on the ground. He really ramps up the U.S. response here. Otherwise, I think we're inviting very dangerous things all around the world.
What do you think, just on the way out, Bill? Look, I want him to ramp up, too. I don't know why he didn't say something today. Putin's all over the tape. Where's our president? But putting that aside, ramping up and so forth, why do you think a guy like Jay Carney, who's not acting on his own, made those remarks in the press room of the White House? You know, you better not invest right now unless you want to go short stocks. What do you think motivates that statement?
I think these guys tend to think that they can say some words and it will affect reality. You know, Obamacare is great. Let's put up ads, cute ads, telling people to enroll, and they'll decide it's a great program. Jay Carney can say some flip sentences, and he can really affect reality. It's childish. Look what the Russian stock market has done. You know more about this than I do, Larry, over the last 2 days, as Jay Carney has said these kinds of things. As the president put on his minimal sanctions. Isn't the Russian stock market up 8% or something over the last 2 days?
Both the Russian stock market had been down 20%. It's up 8% in the last 2 days. The Russian ruble is up after having been completely clobbered. There was an outflow of investment. We're going to get to more of that in the subsequent segments, just how much money is in Russia and could come out. But you're right. I mean, people are reinvesting in Russia. I don't know what that means. It's probably not exactly what we want. Anyway, stick around, please. We have much more to discuss. Hugh Hewitt, Lanny Davis, Bill Kristol, great panel. Welcome back to the Kudlow Report. We're talking Putin, Ukraine, and President Obama. Our A-list political panel, Lanny Davis, Bill Kristol, and Hugh Hewitt. Hugh Hewitt, does this whole brouhaha become a political campaign issue, in your judgment?
Oh, absolutely, Larry. I think that the narrative about 2014 is already that the president is lawless in many respects domestically, changing Obamacare on the whim, choosing not to enforce immigration laws, raising the overtime pay. And then you combine that with fecklessness and a lack of strategic vision abroad. I think we're in a 40-year cycle. We saw it in the 30s. We saw it in the 70s. We are seeing it now in the teens, where American power gets to such a low point that independents and even people who are traditionally strong Democrats begin to wonder, what is the party doing? What's the president doing? So I think this is a huge part of the 2014 narrative as it's developing.
Lanny Davis, 2006 midterm elections was a lot about foreign policy, the unpopularity of President Bush and the Iraq War. Do you think these midterm elections will be about Putin and the Ukraine?
Look, as you've heard, I'm very mixed on this whole subject, and I do want to remind my colleagues that the American people are in a non-intervention, maybe even isolationist cycle, and Hugh may be right. We're tired of being always the one called upon to police the world. always the one to take the lead on anything that happens anywhere in the world, including the Ukraine. And there are a lot of Americans, and I'm certainly not an isolationist and believe we have to stay engaged and tough with Putin, who I think is a thug. Where are the rest of the nations of Europe, and why does America always have to, quote, do something? Why is it our president's obligation rather than NATO and the people on the front lines, starting with Germany, as you asked before?
Bill Kristol, though, I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm a Reagan guy. I respect Lanny Davis all the time. But when America goes wrong, the rest of the world goes wrong. When we don't lead, the rest of the world sort of goes off the track, Bill. I'm not for boots on the ground, but I think we have to be tough and strong and targeted here. Otherwise, the rest of the world is already going off the side.
Well, let me just say I agree with that, and then I'll rest and listen to my colleagues. I do agree that we have to be tougher, and the sanctions, as I do think occurred in Iran, were very tough. And I give both President Obama and Secretary of State Clinton credit for strengthening the sanctions regime in Iran, and I'd like to see that more here with Mr. Putin.
Bill?
Well, we'll see if we hang tough in Iran. We had some pretty tough sanctions, mostly insisted on by Congress. We now have we've now let up on those sanctions, of course, in return for no real let up on the part of the Iranians. I fear that you combine that signal to the rest of the world with what we're now doing or not doing about Putin's annexation of Crimea, and we're in for a very dangerous 3 years. I think in 2016, Republicans in particular are going to be looking for someone who wants to restore American strength. There'll be different varieties or flavors of that. Some will be more interventionist, some will be more sort of stern national interest, peace through strength. That's a good debate to have, but I believe, I'm not sure in 2014 it's an off-year election. Obamacare may be enough for Republicans. I think will be enough for Republicans to win the Senate and pick up House seats. But I think for Republican, if I were advising a Republican presidential candidate for 2016, I would say study up on foreign policy, study up on defense policy. You can talk all you want about having a strong foreign policy. If our defense capabilities are being gutted, it becomes moot. So I think foreign policy and defense policy come back in a big way over the next 3 years as a political issue.
Hugh Hewitt, I want to close with you with this thought, which was going to be my original thought, but we got onto Putin and politics. I actually, Hugh, don't think trashing Obamacare is going to be good enough for the GOP. Even in Florida, the economy was an issue in the congressional race. I think lousy jobs, poor wages among the middle class. In other words, Hugh, I'm saying I think the GOP has got to have some kind of economic growth message to clinch the deal in these Senate races. I'll give you the last word.
Absolutely right. Bill was actually talking with me earlier today about Tony Abbott and about our Canadian Prime Minister Harper, about leadership in the West that is vibrant on all fronts, the Reagan stool, defense, economics, freedom at home, everything you need. So, Larry, we're going to miss you a lot, Larry, because you're not going to be pounding this desk every night in a couple of weeks. And we're going to miss that message, but hopefully enough Republicans will remember that that's what wins is economic growth, national strength, and a freedom agenda abroad.
All right. Well, I'll still be around, just in a more limited role. We'll still be on the radio, get all you guys on the radio show, and I still got a pen in my hand. Lanny Davis, great to see you. Thank you very much. Hugh Hewitt, as always. Bill Kristol, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Larry.